You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey y'all, welcome to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 25, and the gang's all here, which includes myself, Clark, along with Hyung and John co-hosting the show. Now, what a weekend we just had with the reopening of the Sports Card Expo in Toronto, and we'll get into all of that, including our pickups from the show, our key takeaways, and what we liked and didn't like about the expo. But first, off the top, I wanted to ask you guys if you heard the big news that PSA, the grading company, is going to have regular service resume in a week or two. Now, that's according to a response that Nat Turner wrote on Instagram, kind of almost in passing. So who knows if it's true, but let's say it is. First question, how much do you think the regular service will go for? And just to give some context to our listeners, the express service is the only one offered right now at $150 US. And I believe what regular service used to cost was about $35 US. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was the case. So yeah, first question, do they raise the price? Keep it as is? What do you think?
Me personally, I think they're going to raise the price. I believe it'll be around in that $50 range per card. And I think it will really reshuffle your deck on what you kind of will consider to submit, right? I think that's been the same story with the $150 cards as well. We kind of say we got to get, it has to be a certain value raw to justify sending it to PSA, right? So I think it's just going to fall similar to that, where the standard right now with SGC and all these other companies in bulk is sitting at 30 to 35, I think. Yeah. So it obviously would be great if PSA could keep their prices there, but I'm doubtful of that. I think PSA is going for $50 a card, and they'll open up different service levels. But the question is, how long is that $50 service going to be, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that was the next question. Yeah. Yeah. But before we get into that, your thoughts, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think at 150 Express, they're definitely, some people say 100, some people say 50. I'm going to guess it's somewhere in between. I'm with Hyung. I don't see it going any lower than 50. So I don't think anybody should expect anything lower. I could see they're going to have to try to balance a price point that is expensive enough for them to not get like just an absolute insane surge of business again and just topple everything over. So I could see something like 65, 75. I think something like that could make sense. But at the same time, I'm sure PSA is not wanting to readjust their pricing at a future point. They're probably going to try to come out with one singular strategy and have one pricing and not have to adjust it later on. So I don't know. I have a gut feeling it's going to be like 65, 75. I hope it's 50 for everybody involved. But yeah, the big question is the turnaround time, man. Like, we'll see if they can't get it within, like 90 days, people will have to make some serious choices, right?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I personally think it's going to be about $75, like half of the express service. Right. It's a good enough discount to include regular cards. But at the same time, like you're alluding to, Hyung, you have to be picky with some of the cards you're submitting still at $75 price point. And I don't think PSA minds that. I'm sure PSA doesn't want your common cards that you want slabbed, right?
Well, now they have a different stream of revenue with upcharges, right? Because values are crazy every day. There's record values, right? So where they can get you is you kind of wanting to submit, that big card, and then they get you a $300 or $500 upcharge on kind of like the higher end. They make way more money off of that than grading multiple $15 bulk slabs, right? So
good point.
Exactly.
Yeah, they might be a lot tighter on upcharging. I know in the past you could send in like 500 cards. They could all be $1,000 cards. You get no upcharging. They're just trying to get the cards back out the door, right? So I think this time, they could be tight on upcharging.
Out of curiosity, if they went for $50 versus $75, what would the difference of that card be for you? Like, what would you submit at the $50 level that you would not submit at the $75 level?
That's a tough question. I think you're at $50. You're, geez, I would say like $100-$200 raw card still, right? Like it has to. I'm guessing it has to still be $150-$200 plus as a PSA 10 to justify it, right? So if you're pulling cards out of packs, depending on what you're pulling out of, you want to justify. If you're spending $50, it might be a pretty decent flip if you're getting 10s, right? But I think that bottom line is going to be that $200 PSA 10 price sticker that is going to be worth it, at least for me, like, because you're kind of doubling your money at that time, right? So
yeah, I think for most people the minimum strategy is you figure out the price of the PSA 9, and then that's what you go in at, right? So if the grading is 75 and the PSA 9 of that card is $90, that could be worth a shot, right? Because you if you get the PSA 10, it's worth $500. If you get the PSA 9, you're probably at least getting your money back. So I know that's generally what most, the public generally employs in terms of strategy. So I'm sure it'll be the same. If it's 75, then you're going to send in a card that at the minimum, the PSA 9 is $75 to $100 on the market. That would make sense to me.
I mean, let's be honest then. If that's the case, like current price of hobby boxes, like a lot of the hits you won't be submitting. It's got to be a decent hit.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
We'll see. And I want to get into that question. The big next logical question to ask is what the turnaround time is. At what point do you think is this too long where you're like, you know what, it's not worth the $50 or $75?
I think
how many months?
That's a good question.
On a bulk, I think 7 to 8 months is fair, somewhere around that ballpark. But ideally I think 3 to 4 months is where you want it, and that's where kind of that SGC is. But yeah, it's that 7-8 months, that's a little long, and I think this is where a lot of people are gonna I guess turn away from PSA, or it was PSAs to kind of drop, and you see a lot more grading companies floating around, right? And we talk about this on our chat group all the time. I'm like, hey, check out forensic card grading. It's just like more and more opportunities are coming because they're looking after that business or trying to get after new business that PSA is dropping, right? Because mostly the flippers are gonna, or someone who's trying to make some money, they're gonna time it so they're selling at a hot market. So if you're 7 to 8 months in and you're submitting in November thinking that you're gonna get the slabs back in mid-season baseball, that might be a bad time to submit, right? So it's that seasonal approach, I think, that's gonna ultimately factor in where you submit it to, because I think right now for baseball, if you're submitting to SGC, you'll have it before spring training, right? And that's, I think, the game plan you kind of want to go with, right?
Right. I think as a brand, I would say like a maximum 6 months. I think as a brand, PSA is just still so powerful that people will still be, even if it's 5 months out, I think people would still be willing to use. Let's say it was $50 or $60 with like a 5-month turnaround, I could still see a lot of people using it. And, I had a question for you guys that I've been kind of curious about, coming from like a marketing background. I'm always naturally inclined to think about brand marketing whenever I look at anything. And, it's been like 8 months since PSA officially, or whatever, it's 9 months since they originally shut down. And we've always been kind of studying, and a lot of us, the three of us, have been saying, oh, SGC, you never know what's going to happen. SGC could be a good company coming up. But, when I've been thinking about it recently, I'm like, man, I keep seeing only the higher end slabs in PSA because that's the express level, right? And you see higher end slabs in BGS, and all you keep seeing in SGC is just low end, like $30 cards, $20 cards, $30 cards, $20 cards. And I can't help but when I see the brand SGC now, it feels cheap because I'm always staring at little dinky slabs. And when I look at a PSA, it's always got like LaMelo Kaboom PSA 10 or something crazy, right? So even from a brand perspective, now that there's been such a shift and there's been sort of this lockdown, I feel like PSA's even making a bigger disconnect in terms of like their power. I feel like people still see PSA as like the big time king, And because of that brand power, it very well could be, even if they're only 6 months out, people will still come in hordes and try to use PSA instead of SGC or BGS or whoever else there is, right? So I don't know if you guys feel that way, but
Yeah,
I've been kind of feeling that way as
it.
as I continue to scroll on eBay like on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel that way every time I look at SGC slabs, right? So it's just a feeling that I had. So it was a question for you guys.
No, I totally see that for sure. But you know what? It might not be a bad thing because like there are high-end collectors, there are not high-end collectors, and maybe it just makes it easier to identify for the lower to middle end collectors to go after the SGC cards. Right. They just want it slabbed, right, and protected. And I think there's you could play the flipping game at that level too.
Absolutely. So, there's value at that level too, right? Because if PSA 10 becomes that staple iconic card and you get a SGC 10, right? Like you're not throwing as much money in for that gamble at 150 versus 30, but you're getting 70%, 80% of a PSA 10 return, right? So I think a lot of people kind of figure that out too and say, you know what, SGC is totally worth it. Right. I don't mind SGC because at the end of the day, I'm making my ROI and I move on and then I'll buy a PSA 10 slab then with that.
Yeah, and I mean this is no knock on SGC just because PSA is only doing the premium stuff. SGC could very well capture the smaller market and get all the volume, and they could potentially make more money than PSA, right?
They kind of have been doing that, to be honest.
They have been, absolutely.
That's exactly what they've been doing.
Yeah.
And I mean, like SGC 10 gold, that has a premium, right? Like
absolutely.
I've been starting to see people like go after that too.
Right. And you got to remember, SGC is a very, very reputable company in vintage, man. And they're super, super.
They were
hard
the king
with
of the
their
vintage,
grades.
right?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why it's like when I guess it's the big three, PSA, Beckett, and SGC. It's still in that loop, and I think that's why they kind of took the that $30 market over the past month when BGS and PSA shut down. So it's like I think SGC still has tremendous value. Both submitting plus even buying single slabs, right? Because I think over time. People are going to realize, like you said, John, the marketing and branding is huge with PSA. And, once I don't know if it'll ever filter out, but once, things correct itself, I don't think people are going to realize that a SGC 10 is no different than a PSA 10, right? So, and it's all marketing and branding at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. No, I agree with all of you. Like, I think, my opinion, I think there's room for 3 good grading companies, maybe 4. And as what we hear a lot of other graders coming into the game now, right? Like we mentioned FCG, there's other CSG is looking to revamp. I feel like as more of those players come in, like the top 3 will just continue to solidify their brand power even more.
Absolutely.
That being said, anything can happen, right? So we'll watch closely. Yeah, we'll watch closely at the official news from PSA, I'm sure, whenever that comes down. So until then, it's a good time to move on to hobby headlines. So like we mentioned off the top, we all got back from the Sports Card Expo, and I only went for one day, but you guys pretty much lived there for the weekend, right?
That wasn't the plan, though.
I know.
Did you guys have a good time?
Oh, it was
awesome.
I
had a blast. I thought I got some deals done. I know John hustled and bustled, so I think it was pretty successful shows. And the main complaint I've heard honestly was just because of the timing of it, there was not a lot of baseball. So I think a lot of, because I follow a lot of the Facebook forums in Canada and the baseball driven kind of pages, and they were saying the same thing where there was no mid to high end kind of like baseball yet. And I think obviously no one's going to want to sell at the dip, right? So I think that plays a large factor. But other than that, it was rammed. Saturday was rammed. It was just cool seeing some new vendors there as well. I remember seeing, there was an NFT company that was into fractional shares, for instance, right? Nice. Yeah, stuff like that, cool. Where you kind of see what we talk about kind of before. It's like, where's this all going, right? With the technology, as Chris Costa was saying last week, technology is going to play a game into it, right? And after that, where so kind of seeing that futuristic, I guess, where the industry's trying to go, and new vendors like that. But then going back and seeing kind of like that old school, trades. You just go on trying to wheel a deal, from a local, card show, like when we were kids, right? You're just wheeling, dealing, trying to trade cards and trying to trade up. So no, I had a blast. I ended up. John could explain a little bit about how his went, but like I have no complaints. Obviously I wanted more baseball, but it was a hockey show. But
well, I was gonna ask what you guys liked and didn't like, and Hyung, you already answered that question. John, anything from you? What you liked in particular and what you didn't like?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I think when we talked about the card show a couple of episodes ago, we were all kind of saying we're so excited to finally attend the show that's not hockey dominated, and you walk in there and it's just hockey dominated.
Still.
It's just so funny.
Yeah. 100%.
It just felt like such a because getting back into this hobby, I got so used to transacting on eBay, Facebook groups or eBay. Hadn't been to any shows, and to walk into a show and to find out that my hockey cards are the most liquid, I just felt like it's in some kind of weird backward universe. Like I went there expecting to trade all of my baseball and basketball, and it ended up being my hockey cards that were kind of like in the corner of my collection that everybody wanted. So it was kind of funny to observe that. But yeah. Sorry, I was just gonna like the pros. I mean, like we got to meet some, like, number one, I think when I've only experienced card shows through watching YouTube videos, like people going to the National, going to Dallas card shows, whatnot. And you'd always hear comments of, like running into just douchebag dealers or, dealers that are like very adversarial or combative. I didn't experience any of that. Like kudos to all of the Canadian dealers and people who are setting up shop. Like we met some amazing people. Obviously there are some people where you disagreed on their pricing and whatnot, but everybody I thought everybody is really respectful. Like we met some really great people. We met up with some listeners of the show. Like shout out to Jared. We got to meet and like meet some.
I
of the
sold
folks.
him a
Like,
card there.
Yeah,
a big card.
It was awesome.
Yeah. For me, what I liked about the show, you already mentioned it, guys. Like meeting some of the vendors, especially the younger vendors. Like the ones I used to go to even 3-4 years ago. We talked about it, I think, in one of our earlier shows. They're all old guys or older guys that have been in the hobby for years and years, which is fine. But it was almost refreshing to see the younger vendors because they had, to be honest, other stuff, other than hockey, right? So the younger vendors are more likely to have baseball, more likely to have basketball. Yeah. That's what I've noticed.
The flashy modern.
And those are the things that we like talking about now, right? And a lot of those are chase cards too for newer collectors. So I love seeing younger vendors, like for example, Velocity Sports Card. They were cool to meet and just had a good kind of newer collection. Another thing I liked was just meeting other collectors, like you mentioned, guys, like just talking about the hobby, with other people and just seeing how it's kind of grown and just just kind of connecting over this one thing we all love, right?
Absolutely.
And then I think that this is this is going to be times 3, like a lot of hockey. I love hockey, but it was just it would have been nice to have a little bit more diversity.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was a lot of hockey, and it's, like we're all looking for McDavid too, right? And as expected, McDavid's like just sky high in terms of pricing.
I bet he was probably the most transacted player at that card show. There's no doubt.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think overall we can agree that it was a great show, especially not having been able to go to one in person for a couple of years. So hopefully we get another chance to go again. Now, at this point, I just want to ask you guys what your goal was, if you remember, going into the show, and if you accomplished it, right? And I think that'll probably answer the question too about what we actually picked up at the show.
Right. For me, I didn't really have any goals going in. My main thing is, I had some decent cards. Let's see what I can kind of like liquidate my profits into maybe a bigger card, right? So I was able to do a couple transactions that allowed me to do that, but obviously it's unfortunate. But I gave away some of my big Bo Bichettes, and it was a sad weekend,
Painful.
but it was so painful. And I gave away 2 Pop 1 Bichettes, which hurts a bit. But I ended up acquiring a kind of like a grail card for me, at least. It's the 2017 Bowman First Chrome True Blue Refractor Auto of Ronald Acuna Jr.
My
So
goodness.
and I ended up being
Nice.
able to trade up. I had to give away a lot, but for me, I'm in some profits on my card, and I thought it was a good, lateral move. I thought the price was great. Was very, very reasonable, and for me it made sense, and I don't regret it. It was a way I could get a card that I probably wouldn't have paid 100% cash with. Yeah,
Right.
it's kind of insane, but it allowed me to be able to do that, which I'm happy. And like you guys said, a target of mine was Connor McDavid. I thought his True Gem BGS was underpriced, so that was kind of my first purchase at the show.
The Young Guns, right?
The Young Guns, yeah, BGS True Gem, because the PSA 10s were flying. Like after that McDavid goal last week, that was when
Against the
price,
Rangers,
and then prices were above 4K US, and then and then I ended up picking up a PSA 10 McDavid as well, because someone was just selling it like for a decent price cash. So
Really good price.
we ended up making a deal on the McDavid, and then I also made a deal which lasted. I had the slab for maybe, I'd say 18 hours, maybe a little less, maybe 16. But I ended up making a move on a 2016 First Chrome Tatis Auto, BGS 9, and it was a beautiful card.
Really nice.
Because the only flaw, it was a BGS 9 because the edges got an 8.5, and I was looking for it though. It's on the rear. You have to really look for it. So in terms of presentation, it was a great looking like visual card, and it was priced right. And I ended up moving it to the guy you met, John. He was
Jared.
looking for one. Jared, yeah.
Yeah.
He's on Instagram too, but he ended up taking it because he was looking for one at the show, which ended up making sense. And then I ended up dealing the BGS 9.5 to another buddy of mine. So it was like literally
The McDavid.
the McDavid BGS, yeah. So it was a very active weekend for me because, I was doing a lot of deals, and unfortunately, I was looking for a little bit of F1, and I found some Lewis Hamilton there, but unfortunately, they were. George Larocque actually picked one up, so that was the one I was after. He picked up a Sapphire, but I thought he overpaid. And then I ended up going off out of the card show and grabbing those. So overall, my week was complete because I ended up kind of going in there and doing a lot more than I thought, a lot more activity.
Yeah, it's always a good thing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, for my journey, I mean, I worked really hard. I think I was there on Friday for
you did.
all
You
day.
did.
I couldn't make it there on Saturday, but I was there Sunday all day as well. I ended up walking away from the show after 2 days, after the full weekend, with one card. But the goal was accomplished. I mean, two episodes ago, I mentioned that what I was trying to accomplish. I mean, we got our giant PSA subs back. And I have a mix of cards in there. There's some cards in there that are worth $500, $1,000. There's a ton of cards like Bo Bichette base, Luis Robert base. These are cards that are worth like $35, $40, or $50, right? So obviously I originally had a plan to try and liquidate the smaller cards to get into some bigger cards. And I knew, I kind of had this expectation. You know what? I know right off the bat that I can't target like a $500 to $1,000 card with all these little itty bitty slabs. Like no one's going to accept that. So in my mind, I was thinking I'm going to go after some maybe $100, $200 slabs, like a Luis Robert Refractor. And I'm just going to try to get as many of those as possible. Problem is that nobody had those out. Like no one had like those, like you walk into any table, there was no, even like Luis Robert base, PSA 10, like no one had those smaller cards. They were all either big hockey or the really, really big baseball, football. So it was really tough at first. And I mean, the listeners can look at my progression of the trades that I made. You know, on my IG account, Trade You at Recess, all one word. I posted my trades. The moment I found somebody that was able to take a whole handful of base, I knew I had to overpay to get rid of it, but I didn't mind at all. Like, get rid of it, get me into a bigger card, and that started to get the ball rolling. And you know, I was pleasantly surprised. I expected to maybe get a lot of pushback from certain vendors about, you know, working off of eBay comps and whatnot, but almost everybody worked off eBay comps. Like, they were very, very reasonable. And if they didn't work off the eBay comp, most people had some kind of, they had a explanation why. Like, you know what, my cost basis on the card is too expensive. I bought it for this much. I can't let it go. I'm okay holding on to it. Whatever. Everyone had some kind of legitimate reason to not go off an eBay comp. So in that way, I was really pleasantly surprised that for the most part, transactions or like trading and talking and trying to negotiate was pretty reasonable. I got rejected on a whole bunch of other trades. I could have walked away from the show with 5 or 6 cards, but yeah, it was just the one card to be. But I'm super happy. I mean, I ended up trading away, 30. I counted them up. It was 36 slabs.
Oh my god!
In multiple trades, yeah, in multiple trades that turned into the 2019 Topps Chrome Tatis True Blue Refractor PSA 10. So,
boom!
That's a good one.
Beautiful
That's a
card.
good trade.
Really happy with the result.
Yeah, good for you, man. I know. We all know who's been with Johnny. He's been hustling.
He's the salesman of the weekend. I'm telling you.
That's 100% true.
I was dead tired, man. Oh, that's another. I'm sure we're gonna get into the tips, but that's the first day I was there, I was like, we're gonna meet some people. I can't dress like a bum. I'm gonna wear my like nice sneakers. I'm gonna put on Yeezys, And then I realized 8 hours later, wearing some like stiff brand new shoes, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this again. Sunday rolls around, I'm wearing my beater shoes, I'm wearing joggers. I don't
It's
care.
a rookie mistake.
I know, right? You gotta dress comfortably if you're gonna grind.
Yeah. No, that was a good weekend for you for sure. I didn't go in with a lot of slabs like you guys had. Like, I don't have a lot right now in terms of inventory, but I had, I brought a few of my bigger ones that I did have, and my only goal was just to trade up for something,
Right.
And unfortunately, the slabs, 90% of my slabs were baseball, and not a lot of people were shopping for baseball except one card everyone was pretty much interested in, and that was my Topps Chrome Shohei Ohtani rookie auto BGS 9.5.
Yeah, beauty.
And everyone's like, how much for this? And then I almost traded that card plus like $1,500 for a Nathan McKinnon Future Watch Auto PSA 10.
Wow.
I almost did it.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I was close, and then I talked to our buddy Roy, and Roy's like, you know what? If Roy was like, oh, that's McKinnon's awesome,
right?
And like, I would have probably done it, but then I'm like, hey Roy, what do you think about McKinnon? Is he a real deal? It's like, yeah, he's pretty good. Like, he wasn't. So I'm like, you know what? Forget it. I can't do it like on that,
Yeah.
And it was like early in the show too, so like I'm like, oh, maybe I'll get another offer, but that was one of my first offers. I was so close to doing it because
good move, man.
I think I mentioned before, McKinnon's like, and he was injured. Someone told me he was injured, so that was kind of a thing in the back of my mind too.
Right.
But you guys know, ultimately, right before we left the first show, what I ended up doing was trading it for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Bowman Chrome First Auto,
nice.
BGS 9.5 True Gem,
nice,
and plus $400 in cash. So that was I thought that was a fair trade, and the more I think about it, I like that trade for myself. Obviously, he's a J, but taking that aside, I like that it's a True Gem. Like the Shohei I had was a Min Gem,
right?
So I think 9.5 is all around except for one. I can't even remember which grade was 9. And it was a Topps Chrome versus a Bowman Chrome. For baseball collectors, Bowman Chrome First Auto is the one to go for.
Right.
And at the end of the day, like, I don't know if I would have paid like $3,000 plus for a Vladimir Guerrero Bowman Chrome, knowing that a couple of years ago I could have got it for cheap. You know what I mean? Like,
it's always gonna be.
It's like, it's one of those things. Like it's one of those things. Like I don't mind trading for it, trading up for it, and especially I got the Shohei for like 550, 600. Yeah, so I made up that difference by betting on Shohei. So so that was a good.
So like $900 into that, first column. Yeah,
exactly.
You're laughing. And that's exactly what we talked about. Putting that profit into, more of a blue chip. Blue chip stock, right? So,
I think I did mention that in one of my previous episodes that I would, in a heartbeat, do some kind of trade like that.
That was going to be, you played out your real move.
Like, when we're talking that discussion when it's like, who's the MVP, Shohei or Vlad, right? So,
right, that's right.
So I lived that out and mission accomplished.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was fun. And I think like for future shows, like that's what I'm looking to do. Like I love trading up and well, that leads us to the next question. Like, is there anything you would have done differently at the show or any future shows having gone through the experience? Or is there anything you're doing now to prepare for a rumored spring show, right, John? You heard something like that?
Yeah, I think they're going to, I think it's actually the Sports Card Expo. I think they're doing it again in May, is what I've been hearing, Yeah,
it makes sense for them to do it. Like, it's so popular that would be good to do it twice a year. But is there anything you would have done differently or anything you're preparing to do for the spring show that you didn't do this time around?
I think for me, it's setting up at the table. It's like why am I walking around with these slabs? I'm supposed to be sitting down.
Speaking my language, man. I was carrying around like a 100-pound bag.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So I think for me, I want to be a vendor because if I'm a guy that carries a lot of inventory. I'm ready to make deals. I want to sell my slabs. I want to price it aggressively at the show and kind of this is for the spring show at least, and get build up some kind of cash, some bank, and then be able to do even the bigger deals. You've seen I think in one case we've seen those like $1 million Gretzky's, which are there was a BGS 9.5 Gretzky, OPG,
saw that,
right? And then then there was a Curry refractor in that same case, right? So stuff like that where potentially you can right by trading up, just like what we were talking about. But I would I wish the Toronto show truthfully was a little earlier than May, because the spring training hype kind of dies down, and then I know the weather's nice, but I think the right time to do it is like I said, that April time frame, and that's when everybody gets excited and everybody's up and running, right? So
that would be a good
so for any Sports Card Expo organizers listening to this pod, do it in March or April.
Absolutely.
But the booth would be amazing. I was thinking the same thing. But how about you, John?
I actually wrote down a lot of tips and observations. Like I think number one, for anyone out there, like have a game plan. I think that's so important because especially some of these bigger shows, and for those that went to the Toronto one, it was massive. By the time I walked through, Roy knows I was with Roy. By the time we walked through like half of the vendors, it had been like an hour and 45 minutes, and it's just it's really dizzy. You can say it's overwhelming. So it's tough. So have some kind of game plan. Everyone always says cash is king, and it's still true to this day. I think in any deal or any trade that you do, I think I noticed, because there's a lot of deals that I didn't get done because what I was trying to accomplish is getting rid of my slabs fully, like trade for trade, slabs for slabs, even if I had to overpay. And I found that to close a deal, cash is king. Like when you're halfway there, you need that cash to close a deal, because all the vendors are looking to cash out, right? So if it's just trade for trade, most people are not interested. Even if you decide to, that's a $2,000 card, I'll give you $2,700 worth of trade. Most people will still be like, I'd rather take 1,500 trade value and 700 cash than you give me like a whole bunch of these slabs. So cash is king, man. Keep that in mind whenever anyone's doing trades. Like, if you really want to close in on a deal, be prepared with some cash, because it's usually the case.
Good tips, no, and that's how I traded mine. And even with the McKinnon, like I had to throw in cash to close it.
Right.
But like I don't mind that, right? Like I want to trade up for a bigger card, and I don't mind throwing a bit of cash into it. So you got to be prepared to do that mentally as well. So For me, it's simple. Like I didn't have a lot of slabs like you guys did. I want to load up on slabs over the winter. So for the spring show, bring more slabs. Especially if you're looking to trade up and like know the season, right? Yeah. Like if it's a spring show, I'm hoping baseball will be a little bit more popular than it was this November show, and vice versa, right? In November, maybe you have a bit more basketball or hockey because the season's going on right now. Yeah. And more dealers will have a lot of those cards out when the season's in play, right? When it's not at the dip or during the off season. Right. So
I would like to also see more people hosting trade nights. I think that's what's needed too. And it takes individuals that are known, for instance, to gather those like-minded collectors, right? Because sometimes when you're at the show, you're just strictly dealing with like local card shops sometimes, right? So like it's not like you're gonna swing trades for the PC through these local card shops, right? So I know Relics had a trade night. I didn't go to that. I know John, you want to go.
I was really trying to go. I couldn't make it, but yeah.
I think trade nights would work really well. I think especially in the spring, whether it's just like a hotel or whatever it may be, right? Mm-hmm. And hopefully more people will be open to that idea, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go to the Relics trade night either, but I saw some of their IG live, and it was banging. Like, it was busy.
It looked pretty busy.
So, and it looked a lot of fun too. So yeah, more trade nights would be a great thing. Another good thing I think is like if we do see newer vendors, like there are still a lot of old school vendors, which no knock against them, but I kind of overheard one of them saying like, we thought we were gonna be rich because the hobby's been growing. But the old school vendors still had the old school thought, we can sell anything now, right? But no one was going to their table. Yeah. No, no one wanted their stuff, and you got to know the market too, right? And I think newer vendors would bring that because they're in more deeply, in my opinion. Right. So hopefully we see newer vendors, and I think with that comes, like I mentioned, more diversity of cards, and beyond just hockey, like. Me too. I would have loved to see more F1, soccer, all those other cards that weren't as prevalent in this November show.
Right. I also find that it was a little easier to discuss trade on Friday because I think most people who are set up are pretty optimistic they're going to sell a lot of cards, so they're willing to kind of swap out. Whereas on Sunday, they just want to liquidate. Like they don't want to take on more inventory. They just want to get rid of it. So if you have cash on hand to buy, Sunday is a great day to work just cash deals. But to trade, I found that it was a little tougher on Sunday because people were just rejecting me left, right, and center. Yeah.
They're like I don't want to take this on my carry on, or they don't want to fly with this home.
Makes sense.
I know. Sometimes it'd be like a 2-for-1. I'd be like, you're taking on an extra slab. It's like one slab that weighs 4 ounces.
It's free.
Right? But they.
Yeah. That's funny. No, all good advice. Yeah, and I think we learned a lot, and fingers crossed for a spring expo. That should be awesome. And you know what? Like, I'm totally down if we're
watch out for the booth. 5-card guys.
Let's do it,
man.
Absolutely, let's do it.
And let's do a live podcast then too. It'll be a lot of fun.
So fun.
Sounds good.
All right. So with that, let's wrap up the show this week with our weekly segment, Pick One. And this week, it's the regular edition in which we choose 2 cards or 2 players or 2 sets and debate which one we would rather invest in. All right. So who wants to go first this week?
Isn't it every week that I go first?
Go in order.
It's a rhetorical question.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys are more than welcome, I'm just, spitting it out there, Okay, for me, obviously, this past weekend for Lewis Hamilton was crazy. I don't know if you guys followed it a bit, but he's a stud, just flat out, right? So I'm going to put up a little F1 versus NHL, kind of like the secondary up-and-coming market. Pick one in terms of, I guess, the better buy. Because so the Lewis Hamilton Refractor PSA 10, so this is base card refractor, sells for around $4.5K US. Okay, I'm going to pair that up with a Connor McDavid Young Guns PSA 10, which closed about $3,500 US. So it's the Connor McDavid's a little cheaper, but as obviously, someone getting into F1 or, let's just say NHL slabs, what's the better buy between the two?
Damn.
That's a good one.
At the show, even in general, I really wanted a McDavid. I still do, and I really wanted Hamilton. I still do. I think they're both. I think they're both monster investments. I think they're really great. I would suggest everyone out there go attack these two players. I think they're rock solid investments. But I'm gonna play a little bit of. Well, actually, first of all, the pop report. I think McDavid is just over 2,000 for PSA 10. And I looked up the Hamilton. You said Hamilton Refractor, right?
Yeah, the refractor.
Yeah, so the Hamilton Refractor is only at like 80, and even his base I think is like less than 200. Right. So I don't know enough about F1. Like, is F1 short printed in general, or is that because of PSA subs? But I would imagine if it's a $4,000 card, you would easily sub it, right?
I think it is short printed in general because it's a smaller market. But then, yeah, I think in general the market's smaller, right? Too right now, right? But the overall market is way bigger,
right? But
just the card market in F1 is, I think, overall smaller, and the prices of these boxes are insane. Right. So nobody's ripping. Not saying that would affect the pop count, but we don't know how much was ripped. Right. We don't know how much is up there, right? So the
Lewis Hamilton Refractor goes for more than the Sapphire, right?
It does. That's because crazy. The Sapphire population is higher, actually.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So the Sapphire is around 200. Like 150, right. And then the SP version is around 54,
right? Of
the Sapphire, yeah. Right. So definitely getting low pop with Hamilton, yeah.
I think conventional wisdom would go after low pop, but I'm gonna say this: I'm picking McDavid. I don't think I like both equally, but I'm just gonna play devil's advocate. I'm gonna pick McDavid. Number one reason for me is, of all the sports out there, I know hockey the best. I'm in like a 20-year dynasty hockey team where we like pick deep into like the draft, like 5th round of like the prospect drafts. Like, I know all the prospects. If there was such thing as like a Bowman first
chrome
hockey, like I'd be the king of Bowman first hockey.
You'd be prospecting.
I know,
You'd be
totally
talking about stars.
Totally. So I'm gonna pick McDavid because I think it's a good thing to stick to what you know best, even in the hobby. Like, I don't know F1. I would love Hamilton because I think he's if not the GOAT already. But stick to what you know. I think that's going to make it easy. And, I watch hockey, right? And then on the flip side, to play devil's advocate, is F1 legit or is it a fad? Like the popularity of F1, right? Like, has the popularity truly grown organically because of the Netflix show and whatnot? Are people actually watching F1? I'm not. Hyung, are you? Probably not. So is this an artificial popularity, right? So if I'm playing the flip side, how long is this going to last? Let's say Netflix doesn't do that series anymore and it's gone, and it's back to people having to watch F1 on TV or whatever. Like, how really popular is this going to be? I think people right now could be collecting F1. You even heard at the show, like most vendors at the show were like, "Oh, guys, like, basketball's tanking. Like, the thing to go after right now is F1. You got to go after F1, right?" I feel like people are going after it because of that artificial popularity. So
it's that chase game, right?
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, I think it's almost easy to pick Hamilton at 80 pop, but for the reasons of sticking to what you know in terms of sports, I think that's one thing that's important. And to play devil's advocate that F1, it's not out of the realm of, like, I'm losing my words, but like, it really could be like a fad, F1, right? So we don't know. So I'm gonna go with McDavid as my choice. But yeah.
All right.
John says, "Stick with what you know." I'm sticking with what I don't know. I'm choosing Hamilton. Come on. I'm in Canada like you guys, so I definitely know McDavid a lot better than Lewis Hamilton. But I mean, I don't even know anything about F1, but I know who Lewis Hamilton is, right? And I think you can say the same for Connor McDavid. You don't really need to know much about hockey, but you'll probably know who McDavid is with the highlight reels and knowing that he's the best player in the league. I think they're both the respective GOATs in their respective sports. So that's kind of a tie. But, for me, it is the rarity one. Like the chase for a refractor Lewis, it's knowing that it's even, I didn't know that was as low as 80, John, like when you mentioned it.
Yeah, I didn't know either until I checked. I was like, whoa, that's really.
So that makes me even want it more just because of the rarity. And for me, like, it's the Young Guns. For me, it's still a base card for me. Like, I think it's like the Luka Doncic Prism, where, when it was a hype, like, oh, it cannot go down. Like, it's super liquid. It's super liquid until it's not liquid. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's a price point where it just becomes hard to move.
Right.
And not, I'm not disputing McDavid's the best. Like, his right now, like, I know why it's the price it is now, but there's a part of me where, it might be another Luka Doncic base where it just tanks, maybe not to zero, because he's such a good player, but the value won't be there anymore, right? That we're, comparing it to right now. So for me, it's Lewis Hamilton because of the rarity and because Young Guns. Like, I know you guys picked it up, but I'm like, I'm staying away. Like, I'm staying away from base prisms.
Thanks,
Clarky,
Thanks. Makes me so confident in my purchase.
Flip it right now.
Clarky, you're underestimating the Toronto Card Show. That, like, the McDavid will be the king liquid card at the show.
Oh man, I like John right now. you know what? It's funny because you guys are split in half. You guys make honestly great points on each side. I was like listening. I was like, this is like court. I'm watching like court TV or Judge Judy or something. But for me,
John needs the prosecutor because we're in Canada. So I'm the defense.
Man. I did pick up a PSA 10 McDavid, so obviously my actions kind of speak loud. But then I ended up picking up a couple Lewis Hamilton Sapphires.
Yeah.
They're one of. I will say this: I was hunting both cards. It was way easier for me to pick up a McDavid PSA 10. Right. Oh man, it is very, very, very difficult. Now that I own a couple, Lewis Hamilton PSA 10 cards that are very valuable. It is very, very tough to get your hands on one. And I think that pop report is serious because I understand that John's point, how, the Netflix probably gave it a bump, but I believe in, the digital marketing aspect where it's bringing awareness more so than anything. And you realize, I don't even know, I'm throwing a number out there, but like $150 million just to host one of these events, right? And we're talking a following that, is unheard of. I didn't know this even existed, and I really, really, really like the clientele that's in the game, because that's who you want. You want the high end people, because it's a high end sport at the end of the day, right? So I really like the Hamilton because of that. And like I said, if you look at the back of his card, it's all like red. That means he basically led or like won, right? Yeah. So everything is just red, right? So you're right, he is the GOAT. And I think where I get excited, not necessarily excited, is we talk about like the future of NFTs and fractional shares. I could see Lewis Hamilton becoming a huge card in the future, just because of how big he is in society. I don't think people realize how big Lewis Hamilton is in society, and the accomplishments he's making. So for me, like all you guys said, very, very valid points. My main thing is, after becoming a buyer of both, I know that I can always pick up a McDavid, and they're around. There are a lot more around, and I don't think liquidity is an issue with Lewis Hamilton cards, to be honest. I think if you put it out there, somebody's going to buy it. And usually the price point is in that market, right? So I really like the upside of the Lewis Hamilton. I really like the card itself, because obviously it's a little more modern than the McDavid. And I say Upper Deck needs to step up their game, but obviously Young Guns is is iconic too. Like I think I love their Young Guns. I wish there was like a chrome version or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm too modern, but yeah, for me, it's gonna be, even though I purchased the McDavid, it's gonna be the Lewis Hamilton Refractor. For me, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and this is they're both so awesome that you can't go wrong. Like we talked about this in the past when we were talking about McDavid and going after somebody like McDavid. These kinds of players transcend their singular sport or their popularity in that sport, right? So you may not collect hockey, but you'll buy McDavid. You may not collect Pokemon, but you're going to buy Charizard, right? F1, you're going to buy Lewis Hamilton, and so forth and so forth. You don't collect football, but you'll go after Mahomes or Justin Herbert, right? So these are those types of iconic people within the sports, and people who collect sports cards. They may only be heavy, really, like as a collector, heavy into one sport, but everyone will dabble in other sports. And if you're going to dabble, you're going to dabble in these players. So in terms of like long-term investment, that's why we say here, you can't go wrong with any of these guys, because these are the key, iconic, collectible players, singular players within their each sport or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
No,
agreed. That was a good one, though.
That was a really good one.
Thank you.
All right, let's see if I can make a dent into you guys. All right, so I was curious about this because I wanted to know between the three of us where our floor is on base. We clearly know the sky is falling on base. It continues to drop, other than a handful of characters and players here and there. So I'm gonna pose this question: if base is 50% less than its current pricing, so let's say Luka Prism is at $300 US and Tatis Chrome PSA 10 is at $75, are you going to switch up your investment game and go all base, or are you going to stick with your, I think all of our current strategy has been going after short printed cards or things that are more rare. Are you going to stick to the game plan, or are you going to go to base if it's 50% less than what it is now?
Oh man, I always said there's a floor though. Like for me, there's always the floor.
Yeah,
like,
and I want to know what your guys' floor is, right?
Well, if you're talking Tatis Chromes for $75, like to me, I see opportunity, a 4-month flip, 5-month flip. Like I see that, $75 card, and I'll say, you know what, it's not going to change my game plan in terms of where my money's spending. Sure. Yeah, my end goal still stays the same, and what I do is I would, when that floor price it gets hit, for me, I'll load up on that. You do, it's no different. You get like 10, it's liquid, and if you truly believe in Tatis, right, that could be easily a $250 card, right? So you could still outperform on base, right? Any 100%. High end card, right? The problem is people are buying base at the ceiling because that's the most accessible, right? So it's like that's when the market corrects itself, right? And it could be a correction where, $75 for a Tatis, there needs to be another correction because the true value is probably closer to $150, $200, right? So I think it's a good buy at those points. And of course, with anything, it's buy low, sell high. That's how you kind of, win in life and win in this game. And if there's going to be always a floor, where no matter how much the Luis Robert if the Luis Robert Topps Chrome goes down to $30, I'm sure it'll correct itself because everybody's thinking the same thing. You know what? Way too cheap. And obviously price is dictated on supply demand. So at those price points, I think the correction would happen. And I think that's why people are so scared of the base game is because, they bought on top. When Luka Prisms are 2,000, they're saying, oh, it's dying, it's correcting at the end of the day, right? And then there's going to be a great price because we could have said the same thing, the base game, and then it said LeBron James, his base chrome is pretty nice. Like I don't think anybody's going to complain about that, right? So it's all relative, right? Mm-hmm. And if you bought a Topps Chrome for $2,500, LeBron James base card, right? I think you've done well for yourself, right? And that's where I had that ideology of, what, it's a base card, Topps Chrome, like 2003. It's not a parallel, 2,500 steep. Yeah. I regret that. So I think there's a floor. With that said, I ain't loading up on base either, right?
Yeah.
If anybody wants to buy some base, hit me up.
Yeah. But the question
So I'm confused. I don't know what Hyung's doing.
Yeah, me too. At 50%
Throwing it out
off,
there.
are you going attacking base?
I'm not attacking it. I'm just if it's at $75, I'm scooping it up.
Yeah.
Of course, I think it's a good
But
buy.
this is
yeah.
the
I
1v1,
think-
right? So you got to either choose that
Yeah.
or choose the other.
Oh, I have to like.
You got to choose one.
say I'm giving up. I'm giving up my long-term strategy
Why? Well,
and becoming.
no, it's just in that moment.
You spend some
Whatever
cash.
you're spending
just-
money on in that moment, is it going to be on the base or is it going to be your normal trajectory of picking SB cards?
Damn. If you had a gun to my head, I'm picking low pop numbered cards still.
Oh.
Like that's my game. That's my game.
right.
Like I don't dabble into if I had to pick one, but yeah. Damn it, John. I would use both in conjunction, okay?
Wow. So 50%
That defeats
50%
the
floor is
whole
still
purpose
not
of
good
this
enough.
segment.
No, it's just a lot of work, man.
It is a lot of work.
It is.
That's
It is.
true.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, like, I don't know. I'm probably the most anti-base guy out of the three of us. So the answer is probably to be expected and simple for me. I'm not. You know what? At the same time, it's tempting because I do like buy low, sell high is the motto, right? And that's what I do. But I do that on more of the higher end cards, where I feel like the higher end cards are low to what they should be. But when it comes to base, like, I guess it also depends on if it's modern, like how modern it is, because the quantity, the supply is so different, relatively speaking, right? Like we talk about LeBron James top scoring base. Yeah, it's a base, but it doesn't compare in number to Luka Doncic's base prisms, right? And
20,000.
I think I think the supply, if it's a high enough number, it's harder for things to rebound to where you would be satisfied with selling, But I'm staying away from base still.
Damn.
Even at those prices,
I
yeah.
can't believe I couldn't get you guys even at 50%.
She's an 80%.
Oh, man. That's
There's a floor.
crazy.
There's
crazy.
a floor, but it's not 50%.
Wow. It's still tough. You guys are right. I mean, there's no question. Like I've gotten a little taste of some bigger cards now that I've been in for a while. I think, going back 24 months ago, like $100 card would have been so expensive for me. But as you continue to grow and develop your portfolio and develop your collection, whichever way you want to see it, I've had a taste of like numbered and some expensive cards. So it's tough, man. Like I know the visual of appeal of base and what we think of base, it's a little boring and it takes a lot of work and all of that yada yada yada. But I think I'm probably split down the middle. I think 50% will be really, if it really was upon us that Tatis Chromes were going for like $70 and things like that, I think it'd be really tough not to dabble in it. And so for that reason, I'm gonna just to save my own question, if anything, I'm gonna go the other way, and I'm gonna be the one to pick base because I think
You know what? Yeah, go ahead.
because it's still gonna be a stepping stone, right? Like the end goal is to get your $10,000 card or
Right.
whatever 5-figure card, and if let's say Tatis, I just picked up the blue refractor. Let's say the Tatis blue at if it's 4,000, 5,000 US. To 3x that to 15,000, it's going to take some crazy work. Tatis winning multiple MVPs, winning the championship. It's going to take some work for that card to get to that price. But to get a $75 Tatis to go to 225, it could be like a 5-game multi-home run streak. It could be anything tiny, right? So to load up on $2,000 of $75 Tatis slabs and you just make a killing within one half a season, I think that would be the move for anybody at that point. So that's where I think you attack the floor. Whether, it may not be your end goal, but that's too cheap. Like you got to attack the floor there and take advantage of that floor and take those profits and then move it somewhere else eventually. So I'm going to pick the base game.
No, I mean, we're just joking around, but like for some people, that's the only game you can play,
That's true.
right? Some people don't have the funds, right? And that's a legit game to play. To flip those lower base cards and work your way up.
100%.
Not judging.
Yeah, not judging at all. It just for me, it also it's also tougher because it's like for the base game, it's like comps are at 200. The people you get in that game, it's like I'll offer you 110.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
The clientele
like,
you're dealing with is a little different.
Yeah. It's totally different. It's like and to me, it's like that work, right? It's all about that work. It's like you mentioned, it might be hard for that Tatis Blue refractor to 3x. To 15K, but it's a long-term investment where you can enjoy the card and it kind of goes up on its own. But for you to sell $15,000 worth of base, I could see you walking around that show, John. Just
you need that show to be 2 months long, all right? Not 4 days, 2 months.
There's no way I'm walking around with those. There's no way. That stuff is going on My Slabs or something like eBay. There's no way.
No, that was a good 1v1 to have that kind of discussion. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. On the show today with my 1v1, my pick one, and it's, you guys know I've been kind of looking at the Stephen Curry Bowman rookie.
Right.
And I've seen a few at the show, but they're just way overpriced. Like you get way better deals on eBay. So I was kind of looking at that again, and I realized that there's a Stephen Curry Bowman rookie PSA 9 going for about $3K. And there's a Stephen Curry BGS 9.5 going for about 3-4K, like depending on which dealer you go with. So let's say, for all intents and purposes, it's about the same, right? Which one are you going for, the PSA 9 version or the BGS 9.5? And I guess the bigger question is the grading company. Like, at what, I guess, like, it's a BGS 9.5. I know some people don't like it, but I have certain adversity sometimes to PSA 9s as well, right? So yeah, just curious about your thoughts.
Me personally, I think BGS 9.5s, especially True Gems, are the most underrated and undervalued cards in the market today. And I am a buy on a BGS 9.5 automatically over a PSA 9. Like there has to be some serious convincing for me to jump ship on a PSA 9 over a BGS 9.5. I appreciate a BGS 9.5. I think they're undervalued. I think they're closer to PSA 10s than most people realize, right? Yeah. So for someone to be dictating that and that much of a price difference, I'm going, the market will correct itself eventually, and people realize how valuable BGS was, and I think it's no different in this case. It might be a little hype where PSA gets the recognition for branding, but there's no reason why a PSA 9 should sell. If anything, one of my moves, I would actually try to cross over a PSA 9 to a BGS 9.5. So there you have the answer. And I know it's a different card with the Bowman Steph Curry. Wouldn't do anything like that. And a PSA 9 is a huge card in that card. So it is. But like I look back at any iconic cards like the Derek Jeter foil. The SP foil that, you look at a BGS 9.5 versus a PSA 9, right? I mean, and there's a big price gap between a PSA 10 and a BGS, all right? So it's all about value between there, but then you'll see the staggered value. So I'm saying the same thing with this. 100% BGS 9.5 is a buy for me.
Even with a min gem rating?
now you're killing me. Because that's probably a PSA 9. You know what I mean? So yeah, like even with I would rather crack a PSA 9 and get a BGS min gem than sending it in the other way. Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yep. Listen, people are sleeping. Hyung mentioned that people are sleeping on BGS True Gems, and I think people are sleeping even more on min gems. I think it's very easy. Once you see the BGS 9.5, it's an easy choice for me, right? And especially when you're talking about some of these like older, rare cards. When as we move into the future of the hobby and as we move forward, I think guys like Curry, these all-time greats are going to just continue to go up, and their rare cards in any kind of high-grade case is going to be worth a lot. You tell me how much a Jeter SP and an SGC 10. Like, I bet you it is a lot of money, compared to some of the other, like the modern game, right? So I think when you're looking at some of these older cards, especially like we're directly talking about the Curry Bowman, 100% you take the 9.5. Even if there's no subgrades, you take that 9.5 because in the future, the separation is going to start to show itself, and that BGS 9.5 will take over the PSA 9, no problem. Like it's very easy for me. If they're both at 3K, oh my goodness, like that just means somebody is really sleeping.
He's getting a deal.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, guys, we have our first sweep. PS95. I bring this up because let's be honest, there are some PSA snobs out there, right? In the hobby.
Absolutely.
They just prefer PSA branding, PSA grading, and even a PSA 9. Like there are guys out there, and not judging them at all too. But I think BGS 9.5, yeah, like you mentioned, John, just now, like it will appreciate in value just the same, and I think even more so when people realize, especially when it's a player like Steph Curry or another iconic player in their respective sport. So yeah, guys, don't sleep on BGS 9.5. It's amazing.
Super value.
With Min Gem and True Gem, I ended up getting, as I mentioned, a Vlad True Gem over a Min Gem Topps Chrome Shohei. Right. Is what I traded for. Yeah. Like for me, it's almost like a tiebreaker. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not like oh, for sure I'm not gonna do this, but it's True Gem's always nicer to have, of course. But Min Gems aren't a deal breaker for me.
I mean, I'll admit, when you look at the BGS slab and you see Min Gem, you see that 9 amongst a bunch of 9.5s. It does hurt a little, and it does kind of make you go, I don't really like it as much. But when you're comparing to PSA 9, especially on, like I said, some of these older cards that are rare, man, you have to take the better. Like you gotta go for the better card. Like, 100%.
All right, another fun show, guys. Thanks as always to our listeners and subscribers. If you haven't already, please subscribe so that you can get reminders on when the new episode drops, which is on Tuesdays. And we're looking to talk to some cool people in the hobby in future episodes, like our interview with Chris Costa last week. So stay tuned. Till then, we'll see you next Tuesday. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU@Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.